Welcome to the Solid Signal Podcast for the week of October 30th, 2017. You know, Halloween is obviously upon us, and if you're watching this podcast on YouTube or listening to it that way, then you'll see I put a little Halloween background in, which is really not huge. I tend to not do a lot with the visuals for this podcast because I assume that most of you are just actually listening to it. Anyway, I'm a little unhappy about having to do this particular podcast this week, and I guess it's just something that I covered about 6-7 months ago, and I'm covering it again, I guess, and because I feel like I have to, because stuff has come up in the last couple of weeks that makes me feel like I need to talk about it again. And unfortunately, I've been hit a couple of times with the question, is DirecTV satellite service going away? And I'm happy to tell you that no, it is most definitely not going away. DirecTV satellite service will be here for a long time to come. And how do I know that? Because AT&T launched two, really big satellites in the last couple of years. And this was after the AT&T deal had gone through. And they, believe it or not, plan on launching another satellite, which they're calling T16, in the years to come. Build plans are already underway, and this is going to happen, folks. So if they thought the service were going to go away, even if they were halfway through building these satellites, they would just stop. They wouldn't go to the trouble of finishing, and that's not happening. And so what does that tell me? It tells me that DirecTV satellite service is going to be here for at least the next 10 years, because that's how long a satellite is going to have its traditional useful life. I've talked a lot about how the satellite in the 119 orbit is going to go away in about a year and a half, give or take, and how that means that customers who rely on standard definition only are going to have to upgrade. There are going to have to be some changes. The technology used in the 101 satellites, which are staying in the air, it doesn't stop you from getting high definition. There just isn't a lot of capacity there. The existing 800 or so standard definition channels that are served by the satellites at the 101 location really would boil down to fewer than 32 high definition channels once everything is all said and done. It's a matter of how the transponders are used and that sort of thing, and also to remember that one of the satellites at the 101 location is already past its service life, and so they may choose at that time to retire it, but I haven't heard anything more about that. None of that means that DirecTV satellite service is going away. DirecTV satellite service is strong. Yes, I know, if you've been watching the news and listening to this sort of thing, that you'll know that the satellite service did lose quite a few subscribers in the second quarter, and it lost subscribers in the second quarter of last year. The second quarter is always soft for DirecTV service because they don't do a lot of promotion in that time. That's the time when a lot of people churn out of contracts, and it doesn't make good business sense to offer people who don't offer a lot of value to the company these huge incentives just to stay. And so the company doesn't. In past 10 years ago, they used to do that. They used to offer you virtually anything you wanted just to stay, and they don't do it anymore. That was a business decision intended to keep the company profitable, and I do support it and understand it. If you're one of those people who really expected a real sweetheart deal to stay with DirecTV and you didn't get it, I can see where you'd be frustrated. DirecTV will bounce back in the third quarter. They always do, because the third quarter with NFL Sunday Ticket is their biggest quarter of the year. They always historically record large gains in that quarter, but it probably will be a little smaller, I admit. Okay, so when you read these stories that say satellite TV is going away, traditional pay TV is going away, I'm not disputing that. It will eventually happen. Everything in life has a beginning and an end, and I can imagine at some point satellite-delivered pay television is going to be at its end. That is not within the next 10 years, folks. I can tell you that right now. DirecTV is still a great service, a great horse to back. I guess what makes me saddest of all is when people say DirecTV doesn't care about me anymore. When people say, oh, I'm a long-term customer, 10, 15, 20-year customer, and the company doesn't care about me anymore. They're just not all about me. That stings, and I know that it would sting the people at the very highest levels of AT&T to hear it, because it's not true. Now, look, DirecTV is a service operated by AT&T. That is a company that is for profit, and they're in it to make money. That's never not been true. And they want to make money from you as much as they want to make money from some millennial out there. But when we really look at the pay TV universe today and what pay TV represents, it's just a different thought process. 20 years ago, especially when it came to satellite, you found that DirecTV was a disruptor service. It was an early adopter service. It was a service for people who wanted to get up on their roofs and tinker. Well, if you're that person, first of all, you're 20 years older and maybe you don't want to get up on the roof anymore. But more to the point, DirecTV is a very mature service now, and pay TV is a very mature industry now, and to some extent an industry in decline, because it's just not the only game in town anymore. When DirecTV's service started up in 1994, internet service was very rare, and certainly nothing like what we have today. Certain streaming video was 15 years away at the very least. We didn't even think about it back then. But now streaming is a powerhouse. It's something to be reckoned with. And the folks at AT&T have very smartly said, we're going to be in the streaming space at the same time we're going to be in the satellite space. We're going to offer both of those services. And, you know, when you're a long-term satellite customer, it's kind of like being the first kid when a new kid comes home. You feel like all of a sudden mom and dad are splitting their attention between the two of you, and maybe you don't feel as valued as you did. I get that. But it's not like that. The fact is that DirecTV's satellite customers are the profit generators. They are the ones out there making the money for AT&T, and the company doesn't intend to walk away from you at all.